We saw 11, and what struck me was the natural contours that were in there, and how they were, you know, the ability existed there to really have that golf hole turn and weave through these contours, and it just wasn't happening. So how do you introduce a little bit of strategy to that hole? And I think that's what we did by adding those bunkers, kind of cross bunkers for the better players. So if you want to try to drive it long and get it down that hill, at least you have to negotiate something right now. You have to do a decent shot. And again, getting that bunker on the second dog leg brought more into play, so that it does a similar thing we're talking about in number 8, where you have to think about, if you're going to try to carry it to that green, you have to execute a little bit better shot than just getting sloppy and hitting it as hard as you can and hoping it gets up there. And there's no consequences if it doesn't get up there and you haven't hit a good shot. Now, there are consequences. So if you try to carry that bunker, you hit a good shot, you're rewarded by, you can still run in front of that green. If not, you have to kind of lay it beside that thing, and you're forced to negotiate the bunkers on the right-hand side of the green again. So it's a lot more risk-reward introduced into that golf hole. Number 12 is it's already a difficult golf hole. It's 237 yards long from the back, which is, you know, for most players, that's plenty. And it was compounded by being just having some shots. There are going to be a lot of people miss the green on a hole length like that. And a lot of people there on that particular hole tend to pull it left. And what we had there on the left was a situation where you had about 4 hazards piled up on top of one another if you hit it over there. You know, our idea there was to basically eliminate that hump, eliminate that tree, get rid of a couple of those things that are adding to the difficulty of that shot if you miss the green. And, you know, we took some of the contour down even behind the green, so that the green looks like it sits in a much more natural setting now. And we did keep a hazard over there on the left-hand side, which is that bunker. It's kind of a unique little bunker with the island in the middle of it. It's kind of something different for, you don't see that much of it anymore. And it's still not the easiest shot in the world, but at least you got a chance. And a lot of people, especially out of the bunker, have got a chance to stop the ball on that kind of slope green versus you're hitting it out of long grass, over a tree, over that hump, and you know the chances of stopping a ball like that are just slim to none. 13 was when we first looked at it, was another good hole. I think we did some things there that I think make it a better hole. The first thing being, that was one opportunity on the backside, especially on a par 4, to add a little bit of length and get some variety of length in that backside, especially from the back tee. And also at the same time introduce a totally different angle, much more of a dog leg. Again, trying to get away from the straightaway holes that we have out there. It just does this is a good example of how to do that. It did a couple things. It sets you up so that you're hitting into the contour from that tee a little bit more, which is a lot better, especially in a long golf hole like that. And again, I thought it had some of the most interesting contours, and what we wanted to do was try to use those contours by, especially up at the green, taking that bunker that was that long bunker that was down there short and left, and kind of getting it a little bit more into play, and kind of making it a pinch point where the roll in front of the green now becomes part of what you want to call a hazard or the playability aspect of the golf hole, where you kind of negotiate that thing to get into the green. We brought the fairway cut back up that thing, so you can actually, if you can get over that hump, you can actually roll it out onto the green, and just, again, different variety of golf shot. Number 14, we always saw as probably one of the best holes in the golf course from day one, and that was the pretty consistent comment from the membership also. Pretty tough little golf hole. The one thing that we didn't like about it was the way that the length played for the blue tee players. The gold tee, where they're back on the back tee, is obviously the best look on the golf course. So by getting them back across the creek there with the gold tee people, that should even that out and get them a little bit more into a more playable situation. Even though it lengthens the hole, it still puts them more playable because they have more place to put it now. By adding that right short bunker there, set up more of a this is the landing area type thing, where before it was kind of hard to tell. I think we defined the landing area a lot more with the addition of that bunker, and it kind of dictates, well, you know, this is where I have to go type thing. Then at the second shot, already difficult enough across the curve of that bulkhead and that wetland right there. And again, the biggest problem we saw there was when we first got here, you couldn't see it. There's willow trees growing up, and already a difficult shot, and it's like, there's no way to play this thing. So that was the first thing, to get in there and trim that stuff up, and so you could see what you're going after. And then to try to do a little bit of contour adjusting up there at the green to make it a little bit more player friendly for people who are trying to roll it up in there, and that bunker, and just do a little bit of aesthetic work to it, and just try to make it a little bit more eye appealing to already what was a really good golf hole. Number 15 was, playability-wise, always pretty demanding-looking golf hole. We just didn't think look-wise that it was a natural-looking golf. I had one of the best green settings on the whole golf course. It just placed it's a neat placement, and what we wanted to do there was bring some of the natural surroundings into that golf hole some more, and make it seem like it fit seamlessly into that environment, and we did that by the addition of a lot of that sand, but which I think, again, talking about eye travel, brings your eyes in from the right-hand side, which is that natural area, kind of into that golf hole, and I think it just makes it set in there by getting rid of the high right-hand side of those old bunkers, and letting you see down into that really neat natural environment, and at the same time it kind of adds an element of suspense and I think a little bit more excitement there by not having those big humps kind of cut your view off. It certainly, and especially when you get up above it on 16 and look back to it, it certainly is one of the holes that people will remember out here. And to me, it was just really I thought worth every bit of effort to make that thing just visually, again, one of those holes where you just think, wow. 16 had a combination of problems, I guess you could say. The first thing, nobody's hitting to what actually should be the landing area there in that golf hole. It was kind of hitting back short of it, where the hill was kind of kicking everybody down out of play. Then you got in a situation on the second shot where you were looking right up a cart path. Cart path was very much in play. Any shot you threw up there that didn't get far enough would just automatically roll back down the hill. It was just a kind of a nightmarish kind of situation. So the first thing that we suggested was to try to get the tees moved up. Not, we toyed with eliminating entirely a tee, and we decided not to do that. So that in the event that you do have wind blowing from behind you there, you still have the flexibility to get the length you need on that hole. But to start moving the tees up one tee, so that we can get people, that fairway bunker that was to the left, that they added where the old tree blew down, get that thing a little bit more into play, where it's a little bit more strategic to try to get into the landing area. Get the ladies up again, on the red ladies especially, on the tee where they can have a little bit more of a chance to get it further up that golf hole. And then from there on in was to try to eliminate that awful looking cart path that just went right up the middle of the golf hole, and to flatten that whole area out a little bit more, so that you had somewhere where you could land a golf ball if you weren't trying to carry it up to that green. And I think we did a good job of that. I think there's a lot more playable area out there at 16 right now. Then the addition of the left-hand bunker up at the green for the better player, the person who's thinking about going for that shot. Now you've got to hit a good shot. If you don't, you're going to pay the penalty.
Unique thing about this hole, Tom, is that waste area up to the left of the green. You drive your golf car right through it. We'll see that in a minute, I think. And that was a great shot. You can see the cart tracks right behind his feet
that's
there.
Right.
So somebody drove through that bunker. Can you believe that?
Of course.
Boy, what a great out that was.
That's a lovely shot. Beautiful.
If you don't want to carry that thing, plenty of bailout room on the right-hand side, and then therefore again, if you do bail out, you have negotiated your bunker on the right-hand side of the entrance to the green. So 16, I think, is much more playable golf hole now. 17 again was one of those holes that had a lot of potential. Had that lake feature up there on the left-hand side. Had the green again that was similar to number 9. That was kind of by a lake, but still pretty far away from it. Wasn't really kind of taking the lake, wasn't taking advantage of that as much. And again, kind of the straightaway, trees planted, just straight lines on the holes. And I mean, how do we get that hole to kind of bend and put a little bit of movement to it? And And what we did there was add on to that left-hand fairway bunker, which essentially took that straight-looking hole and pushed it to the right a little bit and put an angle to that fairway, and introduced a little bit of strategy and risk reward for the better player who wants to try to carry a corner of that bunker and try to get close to the green as he can. Now you have to negotiate something. That was, sight-wise, was a big thing off the tee. We did add a little bit of length there. Actually, what we want to do ultimately was move the tees back even further for the better players. But once you are out there in that fairway, then how do you add a little bit more stimulation to the shot coming into the green? And again, we did that by pulling the bunker that was left of the green further out into the fairway, further out where you have to carry something, negotiate something. It brings visually the lake and the bulkhead a little bit more into the green without moving the green, so that just a little bit more of not only visually stimulating. This is a tougher shot. And 18 is probably a hole on phase 2 where, and I'm not going to say what it's going to be because it's going to be a surprise, but I see a lot of things getting done to 18. And it should add not only to the visibility from people driving into the club off the main road, but the playability aspect of the hole. I think for the better players, it's still a pretty easy golf hole. I know there's some of the players that won't agree with that, and that's fine. I'm sure people do struggle with it, but for the better players, still is a pretty easy golf hole. So, you know, I see some things, some adjustments being made there to kind of get even more of a feeling that where we pulled the rocks out. What we wanted to try to do there was to take that waterfall, which we thought was kind of really artificial looking, and try to add some rocks, natural rocks, and try to make it look a little bit more like it was a part of the golf hole, and that you had to negotiate that in order to try to carry that corner, which you do right now, but I think it could still be made to look even a little bit scarier for that person, and we'll probably do a little bit of treatment to the right-hand side to make it a lot more of a pinch-looking thing down there for the better player. Still be plenty of room for everybody else to play it. The bunkers that were there weren't doing really anything for the whole composition of the golf hole. We added that narrow kind of strip bunker in there to kind of take your eye and force it into the green, and then force something a little corner of you to negotiate to try to get over that shot, and take some of that grass and stuff that was in front of the old bulkhead there and get it out of there so you could see that bulkhead, and it just tightens you up a little bit more now that you can see it. We had this waterfall that was, you know, really neat feature and you know, expensive feature to install, and it was just never taken advantage of. You could see it from the clubhouse, but you know, the sight and sound of a waterfall is unlike anything else. I mean, waterfalls are neat and people love them, and so how do we take advantage of that thing and incorporate that into the golf hole? We just never was before, and it seemed like the best way to do it. Forrest walked up on that thing and stood up on top of it one day and said, "This would make a great par 3." So everyone went up there and said, "You're right, this would make a great par 3. So why not do something that's a little bit unusual, but have the 18th hole and what we call the 19th hole where they could be interchangeable, where you could play it as a par 3 some days, play it as a par 4 other days. I mean, sure, club, you can do what you want to do. I mean, there's nothing in the rules that says you can't do that. So, you know, that was kind of our answer to you know, kind of adding a little bit, not only bringing that into the golf course, but some excitement to that golf hole, make it really different, and for, you know, very relatively minor cost, almost the addition of a totally new golf hole into the mix.
So here's Marty Davis now.
Marty going with a 7-iron from up on top of that hill. They use this hole for a lot of derbies. Ooh, look at that shot.
Yeah.
You know, the members...
Special events and that, and an alternate to 18, too, which...
And you see what a gorgeous hole it is looking
beautiful.
back from the clubhouse.
Wow, that 19th hole really is spectacular, with more brides than birdies. But I guess that means the adult bar and grill is now known as the 20th hole? Meet you over there.